Hello, I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm starting at the middle of page 235. Fortunately for his disciples, Sri Yukteswar burned many of their sins in the fire of his severe fever in Kashmir. The metaphysical method of physical transfer of disease is known to highly advanced yogis. A strong man may assist a weak one by helping the latter to carry a heavy load. A spiritual Superman is able to minimize the physical and mental troubles of his disciples by assuming a part of their karmatic burdens. Just as a rich man relinquishes some money when he pays off a large debt for his prodigal son, who is thus saved from the dire consequences of his folly, so a master willingly sacrifices a portion of his bodily wealth to lighten the misery of his disciples. By a secret yogic method, the saint unifies his mind and astral vehicle with those of a suffering individual, and the disease is conveyed wholly or in part to the yogi's fleshly form. Having harvested God on the physical field, a master is no longer concerned with his body. Though he may allow it to become diseased in order to relieve other persons, his mind, unpollutable, is not affected. He considers himself fortunate in being able to render such aid. To achieve final salvation in the Lord is indeed to find that the human body is completely fulfilled its purpose. A master then uses it in any way he deems fit. A guru's work in the world is to alleviate the sorrows of mankind, whether through spiritual means or intellectual counsel or willpower or physical transfer of disease. Escaping to the superconsciousness whenever he so desires, a master can become oblivious to physical illness. Sometimes, to set an example for disciples, he chooses to bear bodily pain stoically. By putting on the ailments of others, a yogi can satisfy for them the karmatic law of cause and effect. This law is mechanically or mathematically operative. Its workings may be scientifically manipulated by men of divine wisdom. The spiritual law does not require a master to become ill whenever he heals another person. Healings ordinarily take place through the saint's knowledge of various methods of instantaneous cure in which no hurt to the spiritual healer is involved. On rare occasions, however, a master who wishes to quicken greatly his disciples' evolution may then voluntarily work out on his own body a large measure of their undesirable karma. Jesus signified himself as a ransom for the sins of many. With his divine powers, Christ could have been subjected to death. With his divine powers, Christ could never have been subjected to death by crucifixion if he had not willingly cooperated with the subtle cosmic law of cause and effect. He thus took on himself the consequences of others' karma, especially that of his disciples. In this manner they were highly purified and made fit to receive the omnipresent consciousness or Holy Ghost that later descended upon them. And there is a quotation here from Matthew 26:53-4. Christ said just before he was led away to be crucified, "Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the Scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be?" Only a self-realized master can transfer his life force or convey into his own body the diseases of others. An ordinary man cannot employ this yogic method of cure, nor is it desirable that he should do so, because an unsound physical instrument is a hindrance to deep meditation. The Hindu scriptures teach that an imperative duty of man is to keep his body in good condition, otherwise his mind is unable to remain fixed in devotional concentration. A very strong mind, however, can transcend all physical difficulties and attain to God realization. Many saints have ignored illness and succeeded in their divine quest. Saint Francis of Assisi, himself severely afflicted with ailments, healed other men and even raised the dead. I once knew an Indian saint, half of whose body in his earlier years had been covered with sores. His diabetic illness had been so acute that he had found it difficult to sit still at one time for more than 15 minutes. But his spiritual aspiration had been undeterrable. Lord, he had prayed, wilt thou come into this broken temple? With ceaseless command of will, the saint had gradually become able to sit in lotus posture daily for 18 hours, engrossed in the ecstatic trance. And, he told me, at the end of 3 years I found the infinite light blazing within me. Rejoicing in its splendor, I forgot the body. Later I saw that it had become whole through the divine mercy. A historical healing incident concerns King Babur, 1483 to 1530, founder of the Mughal Empire in India. His son, Humayun, became gravely ill. The father prayed with anguished determination that he receive the malady and that his son be spared. Humayun recovered. Babur immediately fell sick and died of the same disease that had stricken his son. And there's a footmark back here on this previous page. It's referring to Acts 1:8-24-4, and that is that's an asterisk which is attached to the line about the omnipresent. Well, anyway, it's at the top of page 237. Many persons believe that a great master should have the health and strength of a sandal. The assumption is unfounded. A sickly body does not indicate that a guru is lacking in divine powers, any more than lifelong health necessarily indicates inner illumination. The distinguishing qualifications of a master are not physical but spiritual. Numerous bewildered seekers in the West erroneously think that an eloquent speaker or writer on metaphysics must be a master. Proof that one is a master, however, is supplied only by the ability to enter at will the breathless state, and by the attainment of immutable bliss. The Rishas have pointed out that solely by these achievements may a human being demonstrate that he has mastered Maya, the dualistic cosmic delusion. He alone may say from the depths of realization, Ekam Sat, only one exists. When there is duality because of ignorance, one sees all things as distinct from the self. Shankara, the great monist, has written, when everything is known as the self, not even an atom is seen as other than the self. So, as soon as knowledge of the reality has sprung up, there can be no fruits of past actions to be experienced, owing to the unreality of the body, just as there is no dream after waking. Only great gurus are able to assume the karma of disciples. Sri Yutasar would not have suffered in Srinagar unless he had received permission from the Spirit within him to help his disciples in that strange way. Few saints were ever more sensitively equipped with the wisdom to carry out divine commands than my God-tuned master. When I ventured a few words of sympathy over his emaciated figure, my guru said gaily, "It has its good points. I am able now to get into these small ganges that I haven't worn in years." Listening to Master's jovial laugh, I remembered the words of Saint Francis de Sales, "A saint that is sad is a sad saint." Beginning of chapter 22. The Heart of a Stone Image. As a loyal Hindu wife, I do not wish to complain of my husband, but I yearn to see him turn from his materialistic views. He delights in ridiculing the pictures of saints in my meditation room. My brother, dear brother, I have deep faith that you will help him. Will you? My eldest sister, Rama, gazed beseechingly at me. I was paying a short visit to her Calcutta home in Girish Vidyaratna Lane. Her plea touched me, for she had exercised a profound spiritual influence on my early life and had lovingly tried to fill the void left in the family, circled by Mother's death. Beloved sister, of course I will do anything I can. I smiled, eager to lift the gloom plainly visible on her face in contrast to her usual calm and cheerful expression. Rama and I sat a while in silent prayer for guidance. A year earlier my sister had asked me to initiate her in Kriya Yoga, in which she was making notable progress. An inspiration seized me. "Tomorrow," I said, "I am going to the temple of Kali and Dakshineswar. Please come with me and persuade your husband to accompany us. I feel that in the vibrations of that holy place, Divine Mother will touch his heart, but don't disclose our object in wanting him to go." Sister agreed hopefully. Very early the next morning, I was pleased to find that Rama and her husband were in readiness for the trip. As our hackney carriage rattled along Upper Circular Road towards Dakshineswar, my brother-in-law, Satish Chandra Bose, amused himself by deriding the worth of gurus. I noticed that Ruma was quietly weeping. "Sister, cheer up," I whispered. "Don't give your husband the satisfaction of believing that we take his mockery seriously. Mukunda, how can you admire worthless humbugs?" Satish was saying, "A sadhu's very appearance is repulsive. He is either as thin as a skeleton or as unholy fat as an elephant." I shook with laughter, a reaction that annoyed Satish. He retired into sullen silence. As our cab entered the temple grounds in Dakshineswar, he grinned sarcastically. "An excursion, I suppose, is a scheme to reform. This excursion, I suppose, is a scheme to reform me." As I turned away without reply, he caught my arm. "Young Mr. Monk," he said, "don't forget to make proper arrangements with the temple authorities to provide our noon meal." Satish wished to spare himself any conversation with the priests. "I am going to meditate now." "Do not worry about your lunch," I replied sharply. "Divine Mother will look after it." I don't trust Divine Mother to do a single thing for me, but I do hold you responsible for my food. Satish's tones were threatening. I proceeded alone to the portico that fronts the large temple of Kali, God in the aspect of Mother Nature. Selecting a shady spot near the pillars, I sat down and assumed the lotus posture. Although it was only about 7 o'clock, the morning sun would soon be oppressive. The world receded as I became devotionally entranced. My mind was concentrated on Goddess Kali. Her statue in this very temple in Dakshineswar had been the special object of adoration by the great master Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa. In answer to his anguished demands, the stone image had often taken a living form and conversed with him. Silent Mother of Stone, I prayed, thou didst become filled with life at the plea of thy beloved devotee Rama Krishna. Why dost thou not heed the wails of this yearning son of thine? The aspiring zeal increased boundlessly, accompanied by a divine peace. My aspiring zeal increased boundlessly, accompanied by a divine peace. Yet, when 5 hours had passed, and the goddess whom I was inwardly visualizing had made no response, I felt slightly disheartened. Sometimes it is a test by God to delay the fulfillment of prayers, but He eventually appears to the persistent devotee in whatever form he holds dear. A devout Christian sees Jesus, a Hindu beholds Krishna, or the goddess Kali, or an expanding light if his worship takes an impersonal turn. Reluctantly, I opened my eyes and saw that the temple doors were now being locked by a priest. In conformance with a noon-hour custom, I rose from my secluded seat on the portico and stepped into the courtyard. Its stone surface was scorched by the midday sun. My bare feet were painfully burned. Divine Mother, I silently remonstrated, thou didst not come to me in vision, and now thou art hidden in the temple behind closed doors. I want to offer a special prayer to thee today on the behalf of my brother-in-law. The inward petition was instantly acknowledged. First, a delightful cold wave descended over my back and under my feet, banishing all discomfort. Then, to my amazement, the temple became greatly magnified. Its large door slowly opened, revealing stone figure of goddess Kali. Gradually the statue changed into a living form, smilingly nodding in greeting, thrilling me with joy indescribable. As if by a mystic syringe, the breath was withdrawn from my lungs. My body became very still, almost though not inert. The ecstatic enlargement of consciousness followed. I could see clearly for several miles over the Ganges River to my left, and beyond the temple into the entire Dakshineswar precincts. The walls of all the buildings glimmered transparently, though I observed people walking to and fro. Through them I observed people walking to and fro over distant acres. Though I was breathless, and though my body remained in a strangely quiet state, I was able to move my hands and feet freely. For several minutes I experimented in closing and opening my eyes. In either state I saw distinctly the whole Dakshineswar panorama. Spiritual sight, X-ray-like, penetrates into all matter, and the divine eye is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. I realized anew, standing there in the sunny courtyard, that when man ceases to be a prodigal child of God, engrossed in the physical world, indeed dream baseless as a bubble, he re-inherits his eternal realms. If escapism be a need of man, cramped in his narrow personality, can any other escape compare with that of omnipresence? In my sacred experience at Dakshineswar, the only extraordinarily enlarged objects were the temple and the form of the goddess. Everything else appeared in its normal dimensions, although each was enclosed in a halo of mellow light, white, blue, and pastel rainbow hues. My body seemed to be of ethereal substance, ready to levitate. Fully conscious of my material surroundings, I was looking about me and taking a few steps without disturbing the continuity of the blissful vision. Behind the temple walls I suddenly glimpsed my brother-in-law as he sat under the thorny branches of a sacred bell tree. I could effortlessly discern the course of his thoughts. Somewhat uplifted under the holy influence of Dakshin Swar, his mind yet held unkind reflections about me. I turned directly to the gracious form of the goddess. "Divine Mother," I prayed, "will thou not spiritually change my sister's husband?" The beautiful figure, hitherto silent, spoke at last. "Thy wish is granted." I looked happily at Satish, as though instinctively aware that some spiritual power was at work. He rose resentfully from his seat on the ground. I saw him running behind the temple. He approached me, shaking his fist. The all-embracing vision disappeared. No longer could I see the glorious goddess. The temple lost its transparency and resumed its ordinary dimensions. Again my body sweltered under the fierce rays of the sun. I jumped to the shelter of the portico, to which Satish pursued me angrily. I looked at my watch. It was 1 o'clock. The divine vision had lasted an hour. "You little fool," my brother-in-law blurted out. "You have been sitting there cross-legged and cross-eyed for hours. I have gone back and forth watching you. Where is our food? Now the temple is closed. You fail to notify the authorities about us. It is too late to arrange for our lunch." The exultation that I had felt in the goddess's presence lingered with me. I exclaimed, "Divine Mother will feed us." "Once and for all," Satish shouted, "I would like to see your Divine Mother giving us food here without prior arrangements." His words were hardly uttered when a temple priest crossed the courtyard and joined us. "Son," he addressed, "I have been observing your face serenely glowing during hours of meditation. I saw the arrival of your party this morning, and I felt a desire to put aside ample food for your lunch. It is against the temple rules to feed those who do not make a request beforehand, but I have made an exception for you." I thanked him and gazed straight into Satish's eyes. He flushed with emotion, lowering his gaze in silent repentance. When we were served a lavish meal, including out-of-season mangoes, I noticed that my brother-in-law's appetite was meager. He was bewildered, diving deep into the ocean of thought. On the return journey to Calcutta, Satish, with softened expression, occasionally glanced at me pleadingly, but he did not speak a single word after the moment the priest, as though in answer to Satish's challenge, had appeared to invite us to lunch. The following afternoon I visited my sister at her home. She greeted me affectionately. "Dear brother," she cried, "what a miracle! Last evening my husband wept openly before me." "Beloved Devi," he said, "I am happy beyond expression that this reforming scheme of your brother's has wrought a transformation. I am going to undo every wrong I have done you. From tonight we will use our large bedroom only as a place of worship. Your small meditation room shall be changed into our sleeping quarters. I am sincerely sorry that I have ridiculed your brother. For the shameful way I have been acting, I will punish myself by not talking to Mukunda until I have progressed in the spiritual path. Deeply I will seek the Divine Mother from now on. Some day I must surely find her." Years later, in 1936, I visited Satish in Delhi. I was overjoyed to perceive that he had developed highly in self-realization and had been blessed by a vision of the Divine Mother. During my stay with him, I noticed that Satish secretly spent the greater part of each night in deep meditation, though he was suffering from a serious ailment and was engaged during the day at his office. The thought came to me that my brother-in-law's lifespan would not be long. Roma must have read my mind. "Dear brother," she said, "I am well, but my husband is sick. Nevertheless, I want you to know that as a devoted Hindu wife, I am going to be the first one to die. It won't be long now before I pass on." Taken aback at her ominous words, I yet realized their sting of truth. I was in America when my sister died, about 18 months after her prediction. My youngest brother, Bijnu, later gave me the details. Rama and Satish were in Calcutta at the time of her death, Bijnu told me. That morning she dressed herself in her bridal finery. "Why this special costume?" Satish inquired. "This is my last day of service to you on earth," Rama replied. A short time later she had a heart attack. As her son was rushing out for aid, she said, "Son, do not leave me. It is no use. I shall be gone before the doctor could arrive." 10 minutes later, holding the feet of her husband in reverence, Rama consciously left her body, happy and without suffering. Satish became very reclusive after his wife's death, Bijnu continued. One day he and I were looking at a photograph of smiling Rama. "Why do you smile?" Satish suddenly exclaimed, as though his wife were present. "You think you were clever in arranging to go before me? I shall prove that you cannot long remain away from me. Soon I shall join you." Although at this time Satish had fully recovered from his sickness and was enjoying excellent health, he died without apparent cause shortly after his strange remark before the photograph. This prophetically passed both my beloved sister passed both my beloved sister Rama and her husband Satish, who had been transformed at Dashkinwar from an ordinary worldly man into a silent saint. Chapter 23. I receive my university degree. You ignore your textbook assignments in philosophy. No doubt you are depending on an unlabored intuition to get you through the examinations. But unless you apply yourself in a more scholarly manner, I shall see to it that you don't pass this course. Professor D.C. Ghoshal of Semaphore College was addressing me sternly. If I fail to pass this final written classroom test, I would be ineligible to take the conclusive examinations. These are formulated by the faculty of Calcutta University, which numbers Serampore College among its affiliated branches. In Indian universities, a student who is unsuccessful in one subject in the AB finals must be examined anew in all his subjects the following year. My instructors at Serampore College usually treated me with kindness, not untinged by amusement. Mukunda is a bit overdrunk with religion. Thus summing me up, they tactfully spared me the embarrassment of trying to answer classroom questions. They trusted the final written test to eliminate me from the list of AB candidates. The judgment passed by my fellow students was an expression of their nickname for me, Mad Monk. I took an ingenious step to nullify Professor Goshal's threat to me of failure in philosophy. When the results of the final test were about to be publicly announced, I asked a classmate to accompany me to the professor's study. "Come along, I want a witness," I told my companion. "I shall be very much disappointed if I have not succeeded in outwitting the instructor." Professor Goshwal shook his head after I had inquired what rating he had given my paper. "You are not among those who have passed," he said in triumph. I searched through a large pile of sheets on his desk. "Your paper isn't here at all. You have failed in any case, through non-appearance at the examination." I chuckled. "Sir, I was there. May I look through the stack myself?" The professor, nonplussed, gave his permission. I quickly found my paper, from which I had carefully omitted any identification mark except my roll call number. Unwarned by the red flag of my name, the instructor had given a high rating to my answers, even though they were unembellished by textbook quotations. Seeing through my trick, he now thundered. "Sheer brazen luck," he added hopefully. "You are sure to fail the AB finals." For the test in many other subjects I received some coaching, particularly from my dear friend and cousin Parabhas Kanta Ghosh, son of my uncle Saranda. I staggered painfully but successfully with the lowest possible passing marks through all my final tests. Now, after 4 years of college, I was eligible to sit at the AB examinations. Nevertheless, I hardly expected to avail myself of the privilege. The Shramapur College finals were child's play compared to the stiff ones that would be set by the Calcutta University for the AB degree. My almost daily visits to Sri Yukteswar had left me little time to enter the college halls. There, my presence rather than my absence would cause my classmates to exclaim with surprise. Okay, that's it for today. I'm ending almost at the bottom of page 248. Talk to you later. Bye.